So you have too much stuff to keep in your paper planner and notebook, and you need a place to store, organize, and take action on everything that isn't working for you on paper. What you need is a digital archive. If you have spent much time on productivity YouTube, I am sure you have come across Notion. And you have probably seen all of these tutorials and walkthroughs in which people have pages, databases, setups, dashboards, and I bet you've taken one look at all that complexity and said, nope, too complicated, not for me. Especially if you are a planner girly like I am. We like our productivity analog, and sometimes it can seem like Notion isn't right for us because of that, but let me tell you, it is. I'm going to walk you through how I use Notion in an extremely powerful but simple way, alongside my analog planners and notebooks so that I never lose a piece of information and I always stay organized. Hang out for a discussion of Notion's new AI tool. It's pretty cool. I'll talk about that in a second. I have finally settled on the 3 primary ways I use it. 1 is for storing the resources that I reference, 2 is for tracking my long-term projects, and 3 is for taking action on my notes and making them into something that I can actually use. And I do all this in Notion while using my paper planner for everyday productivity. All right, let me show you my system. Okay, so my Notion is what you see before you. It's an all-in-one productivity and organization tool. It allows you to create, customize various pages, dashboards, basically anything you like. You can do so much with Notion, and it is a great tool for staying organized, managing your workflows, etc., etc. But I use it in a super simple way. And as you'll see right here on the screen, this is my sort of like landing page in my Notion. I don't have a crazy long sidebar with lots of different pages. I mean, these have, pages underneath them or whatever, but I don't have like a super long favorites list with all these different things that I'm checking all the time. I just have a few critical elements that I use pretty regularly. And that is because my primary productivity tool for like day-to-day productivity management is actually my paper planner. I have my Hobonichi Weeks here on the desk next to me, and this is what I have been using for like day-to-day planning needs. Essentially, my tasks, my first ideas, like when I first have an idea, they are input into here, and I don't input like tasks and things like that into Notion because I just find the mind-body connection of like physically using an actual pen and writing down in my planner the tasks that I have to do and the appointments that I have. It makes my relationship to those things so much stronger than the times in my life I've tried to input them into like a Notion dashboard of some kind. So I just don't even bother putting them in a Notion dashboard anymore. I use my paper planner for that, and that is what I've got going for my like day-to-day productivity management. However, this little guy cannot possibly hold every thought in my vast and never-ending mind, right? So at any given time, I have like 6 different lists I'm trying to manage mentally of like wish list items, recipes, projects, etc. And a planner just sometimes cannot do it all. So enter Notion. The first way that I use Notion is as storage. So I use it as a collection space. What does this mean? A collection is a term that comes from bullet journaling. Essentially, it is a fancy way to say list. A current collection I have going on in my planner right now is current media that I'm consuming. So I have a list of books, games, TV shows, whatever that I'm currently watching. And then I have this on deck sticky note. But collections can be whatever you want them to be, right? It can be a list of recipes you're going to try, TV shows you're watching, goals, etc. I find that these are the things that we are referencing, logging, tracking, that kind of thing over a long period of time. And I personally hate writing collections in my planner or notebook. I always end up losing the page, forgetting it exists, and just leaving blank spreads on the planner, and nobody wants that. You can see here, like this is something that I made a few weeks ago, and I have not updated it. I've finished a couple of these seasons, and I just have forgotten to update it. I also added this sticky note because when I was away from my planner in a totally different circumstance, I was like, oh yeah, and I have to watch The Bear season 2, and I want to watch Adventure Time at some point. And all I had was like a sticky note, so I just added it into my planner. But realistically, I'm not referencing this most of the time, and I will forget what page it's on and where it is in my planner. I'm not a kind of person who likes to have like a ton of like tabs in my planner. I really just have a few critical tabs to help me navigate around the major sections of my planner. So I don't like having collections live in my notebook. I like having them live in Notion. Let's take a closer look at my life areas dashboard. So if this sounds up your alley, by the way, check out the link in my description box below to get Notion. You can try it totally for free. I have my Notion split into life areas. Basically, these are big buckets under which I can loosely categorize my pages so they're not all just in one big list. And I use these primarily for reference material. I have a few different life areas. First, I have personal and home. These are things that just relate to me and what I like or what I do around my house. So recipes, wish lists, quotes that I like, stuff like that. Then I have content, which is basically Rachelle in Theory. So I have a whole separate Notion board for Rachelle in Theory, and I share that with my producer. And then I have a loose like ideas database that I can just like dump random thoughts, video ideas, concepts into. And then I have spirituality. So I have like a spiritual diary, but honestly, the main way I engage with spirituality is like tarot. So I have a couple of tarot and oracle journals. We're going to go through them today. It's like one of my favorite parts of my Notion dashboard is my tarot journal. So we'll talk about it. I also have my community tab, which is essentially anything to do with friends or family. And I have an ancestry tab that has information about my ancestry because I got really, really into looking that up a couple of years ago. So I logged it all in Notion so that I would never forget it or lose it or anything like that. And then I have tabletop roleplay, which is just a fun thing that I do with my friends. And I have education, which I'm not in super a lot because I finished grad school, but I do have a grad school board and I do have a reading list as well, which is essentially just a really long TBR that I keep in Notion. And these are all pretty much just for reference when I need them. Like for example, if I need a new book to read, I'll come in and I can see that, oh, right now I'm reading All About Love, Bell Hooks, and Thinking Fast and Slow. But say I was done with these, like I can check them off, right? And then I can move up like how to read a book, and that's the new book that I'm reading. Let me just undo that because I most certainly am not done with these two books. Another example is my recipes list. So you'll see in here I have a few recipes listed. This is one of the databases in the gallery view so that I can see pictures because I am a visual creature and I do love to see pictures of what I want to eat. Usually these will link out to somebody else's recipe. So for example, in the macaroni chili, I just have a little bit of information for each recipe, the main ingredients, a link to the recipe. So this is a Pick Up Limes recipe. If you're not on the Pick Up Limes train, get on the Pick Up Limes train. She is amazing. I have tried it, so it is checked off. I have the cooking time, you know, a few tags, things like that. I don't do a lot of the cooking in my household. I've mentioned that before on this channel. So this is just a handful of recipes that I know are easy. If I am in the position of cooking for myself, I can come in here and have something super easy that I already know that I like to make. And that's why I've stored them in Notion. So I don't have to go like gallivanting around the internet to find something cool. And I add things to this list as they come up, right? So I'm usually not in front of my Notion dashboard 100% of the time. So a lot of the times what will happen is I will create a loose list of current media or whatever collection that I need to create on paper first because I think better on paper. And so I'll just jot it down in my notebook and then I'll come back to Notion and I'll say, okay, what are the books on here? Do I need to add them to my reading list? You know, did I write down like a meal that I want to try and I can add it to my recipes list? Things like that. So it often gets put down somewhere in my notebook, but I really quickly need to transfer it into Notion. Otherwise, I will just completely forget where it is. I also use Notion to track long-term projects. Essentially, these are things that have info that I want to keep accessible beyond just the bounds of 1 year. So for example, when I was in grad school, this is the dashboard that I used. I have a unique page here for each of the classes that I took. The syllabuses are basically copied and pasted inside these unique class bundles. And then also I have a table for assignments and readings that I need to do. This was a way for me to track my progress through grad school that I found super helpful. And I also have notes as well and what class they're for. And then I could really easily filter this by the class that I was taking. So this one is CMGT 555, but when I changed a class, I would come in here and I would update this table to show the notes for that class, so that I had everything on the dashboard right away. I do prefer taking most of my notes by hand. So this is, I can barely fit it in the frame, but this is like an example of how I would take notes by hand when I was in grad school. I would just do this sort of note-taking system. And then when I was ready to record or log that, I would open up the page in my Notion and then I would record the material. So I could record like how 2020 changed advertising, and then I could open various nested sort of notes here that I had copied over from my paper notes. And that way I have it all filterable, findable in my Notion, but I also had the benefit of writing it down on paper and creating that mind-body connection. So that's one long-term project that I had going on that I used Notion for that I really liked. But another one is my tarot and oracle journals. I literally love this database. I thought of this and I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect use for Notion. Essentially, each of my tarot decks has like a fancy little page, and I will open them up when I am studying a deck. Right now, I'm studying the Children of Litha Tarot. So in each individual tarot journal page, I have notes on the creation and unique features of this particular tarot deck. I have links to the website. I have my first impressions. I have symbols across the deck like that are unique to this particular deck. So for the Children of Litha deck, cherry blossom trees are like all over this deck, and I have sort of generally what that symbol means, so I know when it shows up in the deck, I know what it means. I have specific readings I've done with this deck. I have not actually done any readings with the Children of Litha tarot deck yet, but soon to come. And then each card actually has its own unique page in this template, so you can see I've just started getting to know this deck. I have like keywords for the Fool, a quick read, what it means reversed, and I can open up this page and I have like further notes about it, right? So this is really, we're really seeing the databases on databases that Notion can house for study projects. For me, it happens to be this like weird spiritual hobby, but for you, it might be anything else. Finally, let's talk about putting this stuff into action. So I keep a lot of notes in my Notion, and sometimes I can feel like notes databases are just like dumps of all the information you know that you can never really use. But with Notion, I've made it so easy to access and use the stuff that I know. Let me show you. On my sidebar, you can see I have my life areas dashboard, and then I have resources, which is what we're going to take a look at now. Just so you guys know, the Creatorpreneur like playbook here is for a course that I'm taking. It's Ali Abdal's course. I'm not going to show you it because it's like a paid course thing, but he has a Notion template for his stuff. And then I have an archive, which is essentially for pages that I don't use anymore, but I'm not ready to delete. But we're primarily in the resources section here, which is just what I love. I love this place. So my resources is essentially like my second brain. This is where all of my notes are stored on various books, articles, etc. that I consume. So I basically never lose a piece of information. And I have a big database here of basically everything I've ever read or consumed that I thought was worth taking notes on. I'm only showing 10 right now just so that the database can load on the screen, but I can load more, and there's like plenty more and stuff like that. And it just goes on, and I love it so much. So let's look at the categories I have here. So I will have the title of the media that I'm consuming. So a lot of these are books and journal articles and things like that. Many of them come from my graduate degree, but it can be movies, anything, documentaries, anything like that. And then I have metadata here. I have the author. I have a summary actually generated with AI, which is so cool. I have the type of material it is. So it's book, podcast, whatever. I could just click this so I know when I'm scanning. And then we have the tags section, and this is where it gets really cool. So say I am doing something, I'm making a YouTube video or a blog post or something about productivity and habit formation, and I want to see everything that I know about those two topics. I can come into my resources page and I can select from the tags. I can select filter, and I can go down to let's do productivity and habit formation, which I only have a few resources in there for this right now, so only a couple of things are coming up. But essentially it will filter down to the material that I have tagged as productivity and or habit formation in my database, and then I can pull from these things when I'm creating my content. I can just come in here and I can check out what is available to me, what I technically have read, what I know, what is my knowledge, and just pillage my backlog of notes for information in this really quick, effective way. I got this idea, I think, from like Ali Abdal. If you haven't noticed yet, I really, really like Ali Abdal. I think he makes really good content and really cool stuff. But I essentially got this idea from him, and I've tweaked it. I've sort of improved upon it with the use of Notion's AI tools. Now, Notion's AI tools are super cool and really great for dealing with long databases of notes like this. So the first way that I use it is actually when I create a new resource, and let's create a new resource together. So I'm going to go ahead and click new, and this just generates a new page. I'm going to be looking at my latest book that I finished, which is Real Self-Care. I've been working through this book for a while, and I want to take some notes on it, and I want to have this material here. So I'm going to type Real Self-Care, which is a book. My progress tracking, I have read it. I'm going to skip the description field. The source field, this is where I write things like if somebody recommended me the book so I can remember how I got a hold of it. So it was recommended to me by my friend April. So I'm going to write April in there. It was published March of this year. We're going back into Notion. I'm just going to paste the date there. And then I'm at it. I have a creation date so I know when I created the resource, which is today. I have tags, right? So I have a bunch of tags. I'm going to go ahead and click self-help. help. I think that is the only one I want on this, actually. And then the type, it is a book. The author is Pooja Lakshman. And then the life area that it applies to, these, some of these relate back to the life areas dashboard that I was showing you earlier. Some of them are like classes that I've taken. Essentially, it helps me contextualize the resource a little bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and put it under personal. It's a personal thing. And then we wanna click on resource template, which is my sort of template here. I'm actually gonna delete this resource meta because we already added it up here. And then I can come down to notes. Now this is where it gets cool. So I can select space to bring up the AI generator, and I can ask it. So I'm going to ask AI, you can ask their AI anything you would ask like a normal AI. I'm gonna go ahead and say, create an outline of Pooja Lakshman's book, Real Self-Care, with the key points outlined. Boom. And it's going to come up with this. Now, I usually do something like this in order to get a start on my notes. How I take book notes is I write in the margins of my books. I simply just write in the margins of my books. This is a page where you can see that I've underlined several things. So can you see all that? Yeah. I've underlined several things. I have written sidebar notes. Sometimes I just write me. And essentially what I do when I take hard notes on this is I don't write them out longhand because that would be exhausting. But I come in to Notion, use the AI tool, create a list of key ideas. So that's cool. I'm going to keep that key ideas list. And then for my own notes, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to ask AI again, create an outline, a chapter outline of Real Self-Care by Pooja. And it's going to give me the chapters outlined. And if for whatever reason I'm not satisfied with this, which I am, this is like a totally fine outline, I can ask AI to rewrite the above. And so now I have a perfectly good outline that I can come in and I can add my personal notes to. So at that point, I will open up the book. Let's open up to an earlier page. And this is in the chapter, Why It's Hard to Resist the Seduction of Real Self-Care. And I can sort of see that in this outline, it's written a couple of the main points. So I want to add my spice now, right? So understanding the role of mindfulness, developing self-awareness. I know that under the umbrella of developing self-awareness for self-care, I have written the note that faux self-care is a coping mechanism for relief, not resolution. So I'm going to write that down right now. And now I have my note that I hand wrote typed in there. There's also a few things on this page that I have underlined as quotes. So I can come in here and I can add like a quote here, and I can copy wellness can provide temporary relief, line right here, but it can't change us internally unless we do the work of real self-care first. And I can write page 22. And then from there, I can just keep going through the book as I have like written things on the sidebar or underlined anything else in the book. I can just keep going through the book and scanning for the parts that I thought were important, the quotes that resonated with me, all of that kind of stuff. You know, this, I just wrote me here and I can just come in here and I can write what I felt that was related to me there all throughout this outline that I have already generated with AI. Now, once I am done with generating it with AI, I can come up to brief summary and I can click generate. And essentially I have this built into my template so that every time I add a new resource, there's an automatic AI generated summary that comes up when I'm finished taking my notes. And you can see here it says real self-care, emphasizes the importance of mindfulness, setting boundaries, nurturing relationships, etc., etc. So it's giving me a quick summary of what this book is so that if I come back into my resources template and I click on this, I don't have to go through all of these notes. I can just reference the summary up here. Now, I could write that myself, but using Notion's AI tool makes it so much faster to get through adding notes to this database. Writing notes out by hand takes an age, and typing out notes by hand takes an age. So using AI in this way really makes it so fast to just get my notes into my resources template, which makes it so fast for me to take action on my resources right away. I can even come in here and add detail. So if I want on these sort of like key points I've generated up here, I can ask AI to add more detail from the book about this point, and it will write more detail. And I can ask it to replace this section. So if I like this better, I can replace this entirely, or I can just insert it below. And I would, at this point, like format it so it's actually below the note here. And then that way I have more material about what she is saying about this particular piece in her book. So you can do a lot with the Notion AI in terms of expanding upon your notes for references. But I think that most important part for me is being able to just have an outline upon which I can embellish the handwritten notes I've already taken. And most of those are going to be in the margins of my books. Sometimes they might be in a separate notebook. But the point is I'm putting them inside this database that I know I can use and take action on right away. And then the other way that I use AI is in this summary tool in the database itself. So this is really cool because you can just use it, you can just click update and it will create a summary for you right in the database sort of landing page here. And then if I wrap the column, you can see that I have the summary super easy. So this makes it really easy when I come in here and I click on tags. Say I am filtering by productivity, habit formation, let's do self-help. So that one just comes up right away. I can filter for those tags, see what I have to use, and then immediately know without clicking into the resource what I am working with, which is really, really helpful. I used to have to do all of this by hand, either writing out my notes or writing out the summary or something like that, and keeping some sort of mental log of where all this stuff was, but I don't have to do that with Notion. I can just come in here and see my notes and use them right away. I'm really excited to keep playing with the AI tool. I would literally never be able to do this in a paper planner, let alone in most note-taking resources. So I'm super excited to try the AI tool for more stuff. Like I know you can ask it to write for you. If you are like writing something and you're stuck, you can ask it to sort of like keep writing and generate ideas based on what you already have. You can also change the tone of certain pieces of writing. So if I like was in this document and for some reason I liked this paragraph, but I wanted it to say, I wanted it to make it shorter, I could make it shorter, and then I could replace that section with something smaller and more summarized. I could change the tone, so maybe I like this paragraph and I want to send it to a friend. Maybe I want it to be more friendly and I can ask it to write a more friendly version of that. You can do so much with the AI tool, which is really, really awesome, especially for things like content creation and also using the resources that you have. And I'm so excited to play around with it more. One more thing about the resources table before we move on is that this table also exists across my other life areas. So if we go back to my grad school page, and we click on, let's see, I can click on this. There's some syllabus information, but down here I have resources. So this is a link out to the resources table. And this resources table, if I click on this, it opens back up the larger resource table that we were just looking at. But essentially it's a small version so that I can input all of the resources that I read during graduate school, during this class. And I can just input it here. I can have it in the class page and then also have it in the resources page. So automatically I'm updating things across dashboards, across various life areas. Really, my resources table is like the best thing about my Notion. I love it so much. By leveraging the strengths of both Notion and paper planning, I have created a system that allows me to manage my tasks, track long-term projects, and store valuable resources. My planner remains my primary tool for day-to-day task management, but Notion is my central hub for collections and reference materials. So if you want to give Notion a shot, you can get started completely for free, or unlock unlimited AI tools for only $10 a month. Click the link in my description to get access to everything the platform has to offer. If you want to know more about using technology alongside your paper planning systems, check out this video I have on the screen about how I unify my analog and digital planning tools. Digital tools can really be your best friend, especially if you have a trusted paper planner by your side to round it out. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys use Notion, let me know down in the comments below what you use it for. I'd love to explore that together as a topic, and thank you so much for being subscribed and for being awesome. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.